Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jessica Flynn and I am the owner and maker of Flynn Sisters Boutique, and today we're going to be doing one of my favorite designs, which is my Miami leopard cup. I did this a little over a year ago and I just love how these colors look together. I love this design. It's so versatile because you can change it up with so many different color combinations. So I really hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. I had asked the Flynn Sisters community group a couple months ago what were some ideas for tutorials that you wanted on the channel, and a lot of you guys had said Miami leopard. So I'm finally getting to it. I've got a lot of stuff on that list. And I know we do a lot of leopard print tutorials on this channel, but in my life, leopard print is a neutral. So sorry, not sorry. As usual, we're gonna have links and some discount codes listed down in the description box for almost all the products that you see in this video. All right, you guys, so that's enough chit chat for me. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, so as usual, we're starting with a fully prepped and sanded cup. And the colors I'm using on this are ultra matte deep teal and just a regular metallic finish gold from Rust-Oleum. And normally when I do this cup, I used to use Seaside, but I like this deeper teal better. So this is a newer color. This is what I'm going to use this time. So after my spray paint ombre has dried, shouldn't take more than like 20 minutes to dry, I'm going to apply a very thin layer of epoxy. This is probably less than 1 milliliter of epoxy. You want to make sure that your cup is warm before you spread your epoxy on. I like to warm mine up in front of a small space heater just for a couple minutes before I spread the epoxy on, and it helps it go on thinner and more even. So you're just going to spread that out. Make sure you're working in a well ventilated area, or you have your organic vapor respirator on, or both. So I'm just going to coat my cup and let that epoxy sit for a couple of minutes so the lines smooth out. And I'm going to start with the gold side first. I'm using Athena, and I'm just going to tilt my cup at a 45-degree angle and sprinkle the glitter on lightly around the sides, and then I'm going to make sure that I get full coverage on the bottom. I'm not looking for full coverage on the side yet. I really just want to build a roadmap first for where my colors are going to go. You guys have seen me do this a million times. The only difference with this one is it's not as important for your fade to have a large transition space. Normally when I do an ombre, that bottom color would start at the very top and fade its way down. With this design, that bottom color doesn't go much past the center of the cup because we want to have not a harsh center fade, but I don't want a large blending space, if that makes sense. So after I get light coverage with the gold and I like kind of where it's at, I'm going to go in with the teal. I'm using Weekend at Bernie's from Peachy Olive Glitters. And I'm going to start with a pretty thick line of glitter around the top inch there, that first top inch of the cup. We're going to get pretty full coverage. Then I'm going to tilt my cup down pretty steep. I'm going to tilt at a full 45-degree angle. I can do that because I've already laid the gold. Okay, but you'll notice too, I'm not letting that teal go all the way to the bottom like I normally would. I'm only letting it go till about the center. And while I still don't have full coverage, I'm going to go back in with the gold after I've laid down my teal pretty well. So now that I have the rough draft from my fade down pretty well, I'm going to really let it rip with the colors. I'm going to start by going over the gold and really getting full coverage as well as I can with the gold. And then we'll go back over the teal again as well. And I'll keep going over with either color until I get full coverage. So you may want to kind of sit it down for a little bit, let all the glitter get in. Make sure that you've got every part of that cup well covered, because we do not want to go in for a second coat on this. So just really pay attention to the coverage that you got, and if you see any spots that need a little more glitter, just pour some more on. If you find that your glitter epoxy method is taking up too much glitter, you might have applied too much epoxy. Again, there really should be less than 1 milliliter of epoxy on this cup, okay? So once we've got everything on there nicely, and I like my fade, I'm going to let my cup dry for 2 to 3 hours before we move on to the next step. So once your glitter has been drying for 2 to 3 hours and everything feels nice and crunchy, we know it's dry, we're going to move on to putting on the rosettes for our leopard print. I'm going to use Mod Podge for this step, and we're going to tint the color of our Mod Podge with acrylic paint. I like to use my Arteza acrylic paint for this. The colors that I wanted, I could only find in my like premium fancy acrylic paint, so that's what I'm using. I'm using the copper gold color and the Verdana green, I want to say. I don't know what that's called. What is this? Viridian green. Yes. Okay. So Viridian green and metal copper, something like that. And then we're just going to stir a little bit of the paint into the Mod Podge. And this tinted Mod Podge is what we're going to use to paint the rosettes for our leopard spot. You don't need that much. You also don't need that much glue. I would say maybe like 10 milliliters I have in here. And like a generous squirt of paint is fine. And you really could use any acrylic paint that you want to tint your glue, depending on the colors that you're using or what have you. And I'm going to use the same glitter that I used for my ombre, which is Athena and Weekend at Bernie's from Peachy Olive Glitters. And I'm going to aggressively tap off the excess glitter from my cup. And I'm just going to discard of that. With I want to say it's like a 1/2 inch angled brush, I'm going to tap on the shapes for my rosette. So make sure that you kind of have like a picture to reference when you're painting out these leopard spots, so you can get a good idea of spacing. And try to make this like not so perfect. I've talked about this in my videos before, that I really struggle with spacing out my spots. Like they look too patterned or too perfectly spaced, and you don't want that. You want to have them kind of random like you would see with actual leopard print. Maybe you want them perfectly spaced, I don't know. But personally, I do not. So this has taken me a lot of practice. I've done this cup a few times now. So it's easier for me now, but I really struggled with this in the beginning. You also don't want those spots to all be the same. You want them to kind of vary in shape and size just a little bit. And after I have a large section of rosettes painted on, I'm just going to sprinkle a little glitter and then top it off with my scissors. So here we have a nice section done, and I'm just going to repeat this all the way around the bottom there for the gold. Now, you don't want to go too far up with your spots. We want to use this teal glue just up until where the gold starts to transition into the teal. So you don't want to go too far up with these teal spots. Okay, so just be mindful of that. I'm going to do the bottom the same like I did the sides. And you can see kind of where I stopped painting my rosettes at the line of demarcation there, I guess is what you would call it. And you can see too that I have a lot of different shapes to my rosettes, a lot of different styles there, trying to keep it, as random as possible. And then moving on into the gold side, I'm going to do the same exact thing that I did on the teal side, or I guess the gold with the paint. I don't know, it's confusing. You're going to do your gold paint on this teal side, and pattern them in the exact same way as you did the bottom. And again, you want to just stop right when you get to that point where the teal starts to fade into the gold, okay? Because we're going to use a different kind of glue on that part, because that's where we're going to actually ombre our rosettes, okay? So once you get all your gold glue paint on there, you can go ahead and sprinkle on your glitter. And then we're going to use non-tinted Mod Podge for the center. So I'm using just regular non-tinted Mod Podge, and we're going to paint those spots in around the center where there's this ombre fade, and we're going to create a reverse ombre with those spots. That's why we're not painting that, because it's going to have both glitter colors in those spots. So once we've got all those laid down, you're going to very lightly sprinkle on your gold where your gold should be over the teal. And then you'll go in with your teal and lightly sprinkle on your teal where the gold side is. I don't know if I explained that correctly, but if you guys watch the video, you can see what I mean. You want to make sure that those colors don't blend too much so that you lose your rosettes, but you want a little bit of, an ombre within those little rosette spots, okay? And don't worry if you get it blended too much, because we're going to use our black later on to really define those rosettes. I'm going to let this dry for about 2 to 3 hours. You'll want to make sure that your glitter on that paint side is totally crunchy before you move on to this step. So again, I'm going to tint my Mod Podge with black acrylic paint. Again, you can use any kind of acrylic paint, and I'm using about 10 milliliters of glue, and I'm just squirting in a generous amount of paint in there. I would say it's about a 2-to-1 ratio of glue to paint. Get that all stirred really nicely, and then I'm using a small angled eyeliner brush. It's the same eyeliner brush I've used for years now, and I'm just really stubborn about getting a new one. I really love this one. I will have a link below to my favorite kind of angled eyeliner brush for drawing in these spots. And really, you're not painting with a stroke, you're just pouncing with the tip of the brush. So here in this close-up, you can see really well what I mean by that. And you want to get your lines around those rosettes as random as possible. So again, look at a picture of leopard print and kind of use that for inspiration on how you're going to design your print. I also have some like random singular black spots around my rosette spots as well to kind of fill in some space. But you do, again, want to make sure that you don't have everything perfectly spaced out. You do want to have kind of some open, empty space just to create some randomness within your pattern. At least that's how I like to do it. Okay, so then after you have a good section painted on, you're just going to sprinkle your black glitter over it. I'm using Batman from Peachy Olive Glitters. Tap off your excess and just keep going and repeat that same process all the way around your cup. And you'll notice how nicely those center rosettes look once you get that black paint around them with the glitter to really define them. It's such a cool effect. I just love it. The bottom, you're going to treat the same way as the sides and just paint it in as random and as carefully as possible. Take your time with this step so you don't actually put black paint somewhere where you're not supposed to, because it would be kind of hard to cover it up. If you do get some black paint where you're not supposed to, don't wipe it because that's going to spread it. Just kind of let it dry, and then you can paint over it and apply some more glitter to hide it. And that's kind of all you really need to do. It's not a big deal, but you want to avoid that. So once we get all of our spots painted in, you're going to tap it off really aggressively, and I like to let this sit overnight. Really, you should only need It should only take a couple hours to dry, but I just like to err on the side of caution and let it dry for a really long time. Again, I'm going to tap off the excess once it's completely dry, and I'm going to use this old brush to go in between my spots and brush out all that extra black glitter. Do this under some good lighting with your glasses on so you can really see and make sure you get all that excess glitter off. You don't want to paint over your, or you don't want to brush over your spots too much because you don't want to disrupt that glitter. If you find that you're having a hard time getting that black glitter off, you can use computer cleaner air or an air compressor to help blow it off. Then I seal it really well with Rust-Oleum clear gloss spray paint. And then that only takes a few minutes to dry, and I go straight into my first coat of epoxy. This first coat on a 30-ounce skinny was 60 milliliters of epoxy, and I used every bit of that 60 milliliters. You also want to make sure that you're using a generous amount of epoxy when you're going over these spots so that you're not dragging glitter too much to a place where it shouldn't be, if that makes sense. So definitely get a good amount of epoxy on your hand when you go over the cup, and then I just torch it at the end, make sure you get all those bubbles out, and I let this dry for 4 to 6 hours, and then I come right back in for a second coat. My second coat on this cup was 20 milliliters of epoxy, and I let that coat dry for 8 to 12 hours, and then I pulled my cup off the turner and I did my sanding. So you guys have seen me do this before. I'm just sanding the top rim to expose a small line of stainless steel. You want to make sure that that line is nice and uniform, so sand with even pressure at a 45-degree angle all the way around the rim of the cup. I do the same thing on the bottom to try and smooth the bottom out as much as possible, and then I will go over the sides just to knock off any sharp pieces. My whole sanding process for this cup took a total of 3 minutes and 30 seconds. I've just compressed it down to shorten the video. But this is all the sanding I usually do. I might need to do a little sanding after the third coat, but usually I do not. So after this, I just washed off my cup with dish soap and water, and I dried it off with coffee filters, and I applied my final coats of epoxy at 15 milliliters of epoxy each until my cup was smooth. In total, I had 4 layers of epoxy to get this one done. So that is it for this tutorial. I hope you guys loved it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and if you liked our video, please be sure to give us a thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a new video. We do upload every Wednesday and Saturday. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you soon. If you love this video, you could check out our last video here. Also be sure to find us on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and of course subscribe for all our new videos that come out every Wednesday and Saturday. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.